Ready to back?
Support that
All right,
guy
I'd
from
like to
Sucker.
call this meeting in order. This is Livingston Parish Council Board of Review, Thursday, September 8th, 2022. It's 5 p.m. Call roll.
Mr. Mack? Here. Mr. Wascom?
Here.
Mr. Talbert? Here. Mr. Harris? Mr. McMorris? Mr. Delat? Mr. Keene?
Here.
Mr. Girling? Mr. Ard?
Here.
Okay.
All right, certification 2022 assessment list. Mr. Taylor? Hold on, give it just a second, Jeff. Wait for it to boot up. So, this-
That's it by itself.
There we go. Good.
You can see what kind of money you're going to be getting. So if y'all go to your packet that we brought in, we'll make this short and sweet. But if you go to the second page of your packet, we can go through everything, but that's the real meat and potatoes of it. It's going to be this page right here.
Got it.
I have with me tonight my chief deputy, Tim McMasters, back there, so he's coming in. Wanted to welcome him. This is his first time he's had to come to a board review. So usually it's Wayne Mack, but he retired on me, so Tim has stepped in graciously to help. In 2021, our assessed value, assessment amount, if you see that, see the 2021 there? Go straight across, you had $893 million of assessed value in the parish, of which $256 million and some change was homestead, and that gave us a taxable value of $637,161 and some change, okay? So we increased this year from $8 million to $915 million and some change. The homestead went up to $259 million. And that it gave us a taxable value of $655,560,000 for an increase of $18 million on a non-reassessment year. So it really was not bad. It's a pretty good pickup because I can remember times when I've come here that it was really the whole reassessment year would have been somewhere around 18 million. So our parish is growing, it's healthy, and that's good news. Our real property, the next line down, was 759 million last year, 778,000 this year. And so that's an increase of 18 million on the taxable assessment amount, and the taxable value is an increase of 15 million. Personal property, it went up $1,036,000. Overall, it has no homestead attached to it. That's why that number is the same. And then your public service went from $48,773,000 to $50 million. We are looking at a few things. The tax commissioner is the ones that actually does the public service. It's been a point of contention for a little while with us that we go up on ours because we look at the numbers on what the sales and everything do, and the public service seems to always have just a little bit that they're going up. So we're working, we've got us a committee that's trying to work on that to see if they can't do a little more accurate job of picking up the numbers, because I feel like if our citizens are having to pay it, then the corporations that are in public service, they should have to pay it also. So that is our board review report for this year. I'll entertain a motion to accept that report. We did have an appeal that came through in the mail, I think it was Tuesday. Reached out to us. They wanted us to go from a value of $7 million down to 4 point something million. It was not even reasonable. We talked to them, so they dropped their appeal. So everything is good. And so that's the only one we had.
It's the only one you had.
Only one so far. I mean, we still got anything that can come in postmarked. It's supposed to be here
Right.
by close of business today, but we always go by the postmark. But that's the only one we've had so far.
Good news.
When do notices normally go out, Jeff?
Notices, we've got to send everything over to the legislative auditor to get all the approvals and everything, then they give us a letter. Usually somewhere around the middle part of November is usually when they go out. We started a few years ago trying to get them out as early as possible, because if you remember, for a while they was going out in December. There's a big event that happens in December that always seems to take people's money. And so it's a real surprise when you get a tax bill, especially on a reassessment year, and all of a sudden you've had a large increase and you've already spent money on Christmas. And so we're trying to get them out. But the legislature changed some of the rules that we had to do this year, so it's going to push us back a little bit, but first to the middle part of November.
Good.
Could be.
Jeff, when is our next reassessment year?
Next year. I'm sorry, 24. Not next year. 23 is next year, 24.
So you can only roll up in a reassessment or roll back in a reassessment, is that correct?
No, you can roll up and roll back any year, but you have to roll back up to the maximum at least once every 4 years. So every year you can come in here and lower your millages. Every year you can lower them.
Hey, what if you want to raise your millages?
If you want to raise your millage, you can
Only
only
do
go
it-
back up to the maximum. So if you're already at your max, you're at your max.
Right, all right. No, I mean, like the Constitution gives the parish 4 within the parish and 2 within the city limits. And we're at 2.35 or 2.32 and 1.16. So we've got to wait to a reassessment year to adjust that to the constitutional assessment?
No, because you lost that when you didn't roll them back forward in the 80s, 90s, and in 2011, they didn't roll their millages back forward. And so when they didn't roll them back forward, that new became their max. It's not the constitutional anymore, it's whatever their max. The constitutional allowed you to take the amount, but if you didn't keep up with it and keep the millage at its maximum, then you lost that.
We can never go back to the constitutional.
Can't go back to that unless you go back to a vote of the people. Now, that brings me to the next point. If it, I need a motion.
You want to go ahead and let's
Yeah, you
get the motion,
yeah.
get that clear. All right, got a motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Mack. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
All right, that brings us to our next point. I talked with a couple of y'all before the meeting and brought up, and y'all got this one taken care of. This one is one that kind of spooked us a little bit, but it looks like y'all going to be on the December ballot for your general alimony. It was set to expire here December the 31st, and we had nothing showing that you was going to be on there, so I was thinking it was going to be a bad meeting for y'all to hear that, but y'all already ahead of it. We do have a constitutional amendment on the ballot coming up in November. And what this constitutional amendment is going to do, it's going to take care of what you just talked about. And so for years, we had all talked about it, but no one had ever stepped forward to really push this thing and make it a constitutional amendment. But the assessor in Lafourche Parish decided that because of the storm and everything, that she needed to do something. So she put up law, it's not a law, but she put up a bill that said that it's ridiculous that you're going to have to do your millages. You can lower them and try to give money back to the people, but if you forget to roll it back to the maximum, you lose it. But if you take down where I'm from and where Shane and Scooter and them come from, we have a lot of volunteer boards. And so you can take the information that we give and we can give it to them, and then that person 2 weeks from now has a job or something else comes up, health or something, and they're no longer the person there. And so it goes to the next person that volunteers to come up there. If they don't follow it all the way through and they don't roll that millage back to the maximum, they lose it. So we've had some districts that have done that, and some of y'all have actually come to me and say, how do we go about doing this? This constitutional amendment, I don't know the number of it. I told Mr. Ard that I would try to get that for us for the next meeting. But this is going to allow you to lower your millages if you want to. If you don't want to lower them, nothing happens. You just keep on trucking along. But if you do decide to lower your millages, or if one of the other districts lower their millages, they can lower it every year for rest of time if they want to. But if they ever need it, 15 years from now, they come back in there and they need to go back to that maximum because they're going to buy new equipment, new truck, map, or whatever. They're allowed to go back up there. They don't ever lose that maximum. It is something of utmost importance that we pass this constitutional amendment to put that in there because it's going to do a couple things for you. One of the things that everybody's been worried about lowering their millages is if the state were to come in after you lowered your millages, the state were to come back in and do a statewide mandated reassessment or a parish-wide mandated reassessment, at that point, that becomes your maximum. Well, everybody was kind of scared and iffy about doing that because they don't want to lose money. You guys don't get enough money as it is. And so for y'all to go and start losing a little bit of that, it really comes into, it causes you problems. And so she went to work on it. We worked our delegation real hard. We think we had one person in the whole Senate and legislature that voted against it. And I think that was because he had an issue with one of his other legislators. So it passed with flying colors when we explained it to them because you never lose that ability. And that way, if you decide we've got this windfall, which I don't suspect is ever going to happen for y'all, but
Yeah.
if a district comes in and they have a real good reassessment year and they decide the next year, I don't quite need that much, I can lower my millages by 0.5% or 0.5 mil. So they lower it. Well, if they go along and forget to put it back up and all of a sudden they need it, like this constitutional thing, and we're down the road 25 years and you need it, you can't go back to it. But this way, when we pass this constitutional amendment, it is going to allow you to lower it, and if you ever need to go back up to the maximum, it's there.
Will that have to be on the ballot?
It's on the ballot for November.
So that'll be on the
Yeah,
ballot.
it's
for
on the
this.
ballot for November.
So the people will make that decision.
Yeah, the people's gonna have to make it. So I'm gonna do my best to try to get as much of the word out as possible. I talked about it a little bit this morning on a podcast with the Denham Springs News. I'm gonna hopefully be talking to them a little bit more. We're gonna try to do an editorial board with the Denham Springs News. But it is really important that we pass that constitutional amendment.
And what people need to understand, it's not going to allow government to raise your millages. It's just going to make it what you voted in, you
What
can roll
voted
it
in,
up to.
You can roll it back up to that maximum
And
at
when we
any
don't
time.
need it, or whatever taxing body doesn't need it, they can draw it down, save everybody a little money, and then when they say, oh, we really need to buy whatever.
Yep, and you can go right back up to it. And
Yeah.
you don't have to go back to the legislature to do all this stuff, it's just there. It
Because
takes care of it.
the long-term impact of rolling millages back has been negative over the deal. If you're able to adjust it as needed, then
It's
you
been-
can
it's-
save people money when you
It's
don't.
been good if you lowered it and then you rolled it back up to the maximum. That was good. When it was not good is when you lowered it and forgot to roll it back up. I don't know if y'all remember, a few years ago, North Park went through a deal to where they forgot to renew their whole tax, the 15 mills. So when they passed it back up, they had lowered their millages down a couple times, so they passed to 15, and then they stayed there. And then they would drop it a little bit each year, and then they would roll back up. So they did it right, but we've had several districts that have rolled it back forward.
I
And that's
think-
nothing for y'all, I mean, because you wouldn't, I don't believe any of y'all were here in the 80s, the 90s, and 2011. I'm looking around, I don't think any of y'all were here in 2011 as a councilman, were you?
Andy might have been the closest one.
90s.
It's Randy's fault.
So, but that, the whole thing is, you just didn't know.
Right.
They literally were trying to do.
Save people money.
Save-
Yeah, sure.
I remember when we had the meeting, and we all went to the meeting, and they decided they was gonna lower the millages. And it was quite a shock, actually, because it was a deal to where y'all don't have a lot of money. Some of the districts can lower the millages. There's some of them that need to lower their millages, but that's not my business, that's theirs.
You've been a proponent of people
I've been a
doing that when you
proponent-
can.
I've been a proponent
Yeah.
of lowering the millages. I lower my millages, but every 4 years, I gotta go back up to the maximum. It makes no sense. Makes no sense. And so this is a deal to where I'm gonna be able to lower my millages and operate my office very well. Technology has really been a big boom for us. It's really helped us to where with payroll and everything. So the technology costs a lot, but it helps you on saving on people.
yeah.
So, but this thing, I'm just telling y'all that it is really important that we pass this thing so we don't ever have this situation come up again. Because this general tax y'all fixing to try to renew, you go in there and y'all start lowering the millages, and all of a sudden it comes out at 3. When you're looking, if you're getting $5 million a year off of that, and you're getting 5 meals, and you go down to 3 meals, you're getting 3. So it's going to work out simple math. So if you need to be able to go back up
As needed, yeah.
as needed.
When needed.
When
That's
needed
right.
and as needed, exactly. So I'm going to come
Couple
back to
weeks,
you
you
in a
gonna
couple
come back and
weeks.
see us?
I'm going to
Back
come
in a
back to you and
couple
see if we
weeks.
can't get that on the agenda to make a resolution, to see if we can't pass that, and let's get that thing passed
We'll
big
work
here in
on
Livingston.
everybody we know and talk to them about it.
When I go to different places, I talk about all the time how my parish, I've had a lot of people that have lowered their millages, and they've got burned on it because they were trying to do the right thing. I want to pass this thing real big in our parish, because every meeting I go to, I hammer this over and over and over about, we need to get this thing done.
We appreciate that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Anything else, any questions?
I don't think.
We need a motion to sustain the valuation of the assessment.
I did the board of review,
We have another one. It says sustain the valuation of the assessment as fixed by the Louisiana Tax Commission and the
Okay.
assessor of the parish
Okay, you're
of
doing-
Livingston for the
doing
tax.
two
Make
of
that
them.
motion.
Okay.
Got a motion by Mr. Talbot,
Second.
second by Mr. King.
Okay, so
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion
the first
carries.
motion was for the certification, the second motion's for the resolution on valuation, right?
Correct.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Talbot, second by Mr. King. All in favor?
Can we do the next one now, or do we have to
Go ahead
wait?
and do the next one.
Do it.